Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 1. United States District Court. Southern District of Florida. Miami Division. Case No. 23-80101 CR, Canon. United States of America. Plaintiff. Versus. Donald J. Trump and Waltine NAUTA. Defendants. Miami, Florida. June 13, 2023. 2:55 p.m. to 3:44 p.m. Courtroom 13-3. Pages 1-36. Initial appearance and arraignment before the Honorable Jonathan Goodman, United States Magistrate Judge. Appearances. For the government. J. Bratt, ESQ. David Harbach, ESQ. Julie Edelstein, ESQ. Counterintelligence and Export Control Section. National Security Division. U.S. Department of Justice, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, NW. Washington, D.C. 20530. 202-233-2113. For Defendant Donald J. Trump. Christopher M. Keyes, ESQ. Continental, PLLC. 101 North Monroe Street. Tallahassee, Florida, 32301. 805-270-2211. Keyes at continentalpub.com. Todd Blanche, ESQ. Blanche Law. 99 Wall Street, Suite 4460. New York, New York 10005. 212-716-1250. Todd Blanche at blanchelaw.com. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 2. Appearances continued. For Defendant Waltine NAUTA. Stanley M. Woodward, ESQ. Brand Woodward, Law 2001 K. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20006. 202-258-6597. StanleyBrand@gmail.com. Also present. Susie Silva, Pretrial Services. Reported by Stephanie A. McCarn, RPR. Official Court Reporter. 400 North Miami Avenue. 13th floor. Miami, Florida, 331283055235518. Stephanie_McCarn at flsd.uscourts.gov. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 3. Index witnesses. Witnesses for the government, blank. Page, blank. Witnesses for the defendants, blank. Page, blank. Exhibits and evidence. Plaintiff's Exhibit No. Identified, blank, admitted, blank. Defendant's Exhibit No. Identified, blank, admitted, blank. Miscellaneous. Proceedings. Page 4. Court Reporter's Certificate. Page 30. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 4. The following proceedings were held at 2:55 p.m. The Courtroom Deputy. All rise. The Court. And good afternoon, folks. Please be seated. Make yourself comfortable. Unidentified speaker, good afternoon, Your Honor. The Court, give me half a minute to get organized and get settled. Pause in proceedings. The Court. We're here, folks, for case number 23-80101 CR Canon. United States of America vs. Donald J. Trump and Waltine NAUTA. First, I want to thank Chief Judge Cecilia Altanaga for letting me use this courtroom and also chambers. Second, I want to thank the U.S. Marshal and all of his deputies for all the hard work that they've put in the past several days. And also thanks to the entire law enforcement community, all the multiple agencies who have been working over the past several days to get this organized. And finally, I'd like to thank the clerk of the court and her staff for making arrangements under a time crunch. I want to remind everyone of the court's broadcasting prohibition rules. No photographs or videos in this courtroom or otherwise in the building. And I am also going to point out what I call the no circumventing the rule, which means for those folks who Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 5. Are over in the spillover room watching this on television monitors. You're not allowed to record or broadcast from what you see on TV, because that would defeat the entire prohibition. We're going to start off by taking former President Trump first, and then we'll handle co-defendant NAUTA. Who is here for the prosecution, please? Mr. Harbach. Good afternoon, Your Honor. David Harbach of the Special Counsel's Office for the United States. Sitting with me at the table are my colleagues, Jay Bratt and Julie Edelstein. The court. Thank you. And all three of you are from Washington? Mr. Harbach. Yes, Your Honor. The court. Well, welcome to the Southern District of Florida. Mr. Harbach. Thank you, sir. The court. And who is here for former President Trump? Emar Kais. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Christopher Kais, Continental PLIC on behalf of President Donald Trump. And I appreciate the court already granting Mr. Blanche's pro hac vice. He'll enter his appearance. The court. Thank you. I don't want to take undue credit, it was actually Judge Cannon who granted that motion. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 6. For pro hac vice, but thank you so much. And your colleague? Mr. Blanche. Todd Blanche, just admitted pro hac vice. Good afternoon, Your Honor. The court. Good afternoon. And you are from New York City? Mr. Blanche. I am, Your Honor. The court. Welcome to the Southern District of Florida as well. So I have a question for both of you. And you can feel free to be seated, make yourself comfortable. Are both of you here temporarily or permanently? Mr. Kais. Permanently, Your Honor. Mr. Blanche. Permanently, Your Honor. The court. Okay, that's good to know. Have you filed a notice of permanent appearance yet? Mr. Kais. Yes, Your Honor, I have. The court. Okay. And Mr. Blanche. Mr. Blanche. I was just admitted, Your Honor. I will do so promptly. The court. All right. Well, why don't you take until tomorrow to get that done? It's sort of an administrative step. But thank you. Very well. So since both of you are here permanently, let me ask one other background question, which is, are you here for trial? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 7. Purposes only or trial and appeal? Mr. Kais. Trial and appeal, Your Honor, as reflected in our notice. The court. All right. Very good. Thank you so much. Folks, the indictment itself is 44 pages, 38 counts with 37 counts against the former President Trump and 6 against the co-defendant and alleged co-conspirator, NAUTA. Have you folks reviewed the indictment with former President Trump? Mr. Blanche. We have, Your Honor. The court. And because both of you are in the case permanently, would you like to arraign him now? Mr. Blanche. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Kais. Yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. So let's move forward and do that, please. So the custom in our district, customs vary from district to district. But in our district, we typically don't read aloud the entire indictment. That would take quite a while. The typical protocol is for the defense lawyers to say we waive the formal reading. Are you willing to waive the formal reading? Mr. Blanche. We waive the formal reading, Your Honor. The court. All right. And the next step typically would be you either enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 8. Mr. Blanche. Your Honor, we most certainly enter a plea of not guilty. The court. All right. And the other typical request that we make in this district is, we'd like a jury trial, we demand a jury trial. Is that something you're asking for? Mr. Blanche. We so demand, yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. And the other typical step that defense lawyers in our district take is to ask for the issuance of the standing discovery order. Are you making that request as well? Mr. Blanche. Yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. The standing discovery order either has been uploaded or will soon be uploaded on our CMEC system. I'm now going to be issuing what we call the Brady order. I'm confident that the Department of Justice is fully aware of its Brady obligations, but in an abundance of caution, we now issue an actual order to enforce the Brady obligations. So I'm going to be reading the Brady order, issuing the Brady order, and this order also applies for the co-defendant, Mr. NAUTA, as well. A written version of this Brady order will later appear on our CMECF written docket. As required by Rule 5F of the Rules of Criminal Procedure, the United States is ordered to disclose to the Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 9. Defendant all exculpatory evidence, that is, evidence that favors the defendant or casts doubt on the United States' case as required by Brady v. Maryland and its progeny. The government has a duty to disclose any evidence that goes to negating the defendant's guilt, the credibility of a witness, or that would reduce a potential sentence. The defendant is entitled to this information without a request. Not doing so in a timely manner may result in consequences, including, but not limited to, exclusion of evidence, adverse jury instructions, dismissal of charges, contempt proceedings, disciplinary action or sanctions by the court. On the summons that the government issued, docket entry number 4 is the summons that you asked the clerk of the court to be signed. Chief Magistrate Judge Edwin Torres issued the summons on June 8, 2023. A bond recommendation was attached signed by J. Bratt, Assistant Special Counsel. That recommendation called for a personal surety bond with no financial component. No dollar amount. Basically, it was a personal recognizance type of release. Is this still the recommendation of the United States? Mr. Harbach. It is, Your Honor. The court. Have you discussed the proposed terms of release or bond with any of the defense lawyers? In other words, have you worked something out? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 10. Mr. Harbach. Yes, Your Honor. Well, I can represent this much. We had informed counsel for both defendants that our recommendation for the conditions associated with the personal surety bond that Your Honor just described will be the same. And they are, in particular, a recommendation that the court impose what in this district under the standard conditions of bond are labeled Condition Number 1. The court. Yes. Mr. Harbach. And Condition Number 5. The court. Yes. Mr. Harbach. and that the remaining standard conditions of bond need not apply here because the government does not review either defendant as a flight risk, and, furthermore, that no special conditions are necessary in this instance. I've related that to both defense counsel, Your Honor. The court. All right. And was there an agreement? Mr. Blanche, there is, Your Honor. The court. All right. So both sides, at least as to former President Trump, are saying this should be a personal surety bond, no dollar amount, no financial component, and only the standard conditions 1 through 5. Mr. Blanche. No, Your Honor. Mr. Harbach. No, Your Honor, 1 and 5. The court. Of course. My mistake. 1 and 5. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 11. Mr. Harbach. Yes. The court. So 18 U.S.C. 3142, A.1, authorizes a defendant to be released on a personal recognizance or upon execution of an unsecured appearance bond. Section B, subsection B, authorizes this, quote, lest the judicial officer, meaning me, determines that such release will not reasonably assure the appearance of the person as required or will endanger the safety of any other person or the community. I think, as you've just indicated, the government is representing that those concerns are not concerns in this case for either of the two defendants, correct? Mr. Harbach. Yes, Your Honor. The court. Subsection B requires the release to be subject to the condition that the person not commit a federal, state or local crime during the period of release, that is standard condition number 5. I assume the defendant, former President Trump, has no problems with that condition? Mr. Blanche. I assure you he does not, Your Honor. The court. All right. Very good. So I understand the discussions that the two sides have had. I, however, have some questions about the prosecution's release recommendations, and I'll go through them now. Right now we're just talking about former President Trump. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 12. Is the prosecution asking for former President Trump to surrender his passport? Mr. Harbach. No, Your Honor. The court. Is the prosecution requesting any international travel limits on former President Trump? Mr. Harbach. No, Your Honor. The court. Is the prosecution asking for any limits on domestic travel for former President Trump? Mr. Harbach. No, Your Honor. The court. So one of the standard conditions of our bond is no travel outside the Southern District of Florida unless pre-approved by a court. What is your position on that? Mr. Harbach. That it's not necessary, Your Honor. The court. Fair enough. Is the prosecution requesting that former President Trump be forbidden from possessing firearms, ammunition, or dangerous devices? Mr. Harbach. No, Your Honor. The court. Is the prosecution asking that former President Trump avoid all contact with co-defendants, victims, and witnesses except through counsel? Mr. Harbach. We are not requesting that condition either, Your Honor. The court. Is the prosecution requesting that former President Trump report to pretrial services in any way? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 13. Mr. Harbach. No, sir. The court. Is the prosecution asking for any other special conditions of pretrial release? Mr. Harbach. No, sir. The court. Is pretrial services a representative from pretrial services here? Yes, Ms. Silva. Ms. Silva, yes, Your Honor. The court. Good to see you, Ms. Silva. Is pretrial services requesting any special conditions? Ms. Silva. No, Your Honor. The Court. So I'm going to authorize a personal surety appearance bond for former President Trump without a financial component. It is, in fact, a personal recognizance release with the following conditions. As you have indicated, numbers 1 and 5. However, despite the party's recommendations to me, I am also going to be imposing some additional special conditions. Former President Trump will avoid all contact with witnesses and victims except through counsel. This condition will be effective once defense counsel receives a written list of those witnesses and victims from the prosecutor. Please send a copy to pretrial services as well. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 14. The prohibition will be effective only as to those on the written list. The prosecution will have the ability to expand that list by submitting an amended list. In addition, I'm imposing the special condition that former President Trump may not communicate with the co-defendant, NAUTA, about the case. And the reason I am emphasizing the words about the case is that normally in our district, and probably many others, the condition is no contact whatsoever, so typically whenever there is a no contact with a co-defendant provision, it means no contact whatsoever except through counsel. However, it is my understanding that Mr. NAUTA works for former President Trump and is with you on a daily basis, or close to it. Therefore, it would be impossible for that condition to work in the typical way, because if he works for you, you are going to have contact with him on a daily basis. Therefore, I am modifying that special condition so that it's only discussions about the case, except through counsel. We have here a personal surety bond for former President Trump to sign. I am going to check off the appropriate boxes. Mr. Blanche. Your Honor? The Court. Yes, sir. Mr. Blanche. May I be heard on the special condition? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 15. The Court. Yes. Mr. Blanche. Thank you. The challenge with the special condition that President Trump not have contact with witnesses is that many. We don't know who the witnesses are, every one of them, but many of the witnesses who we understand to be involved in this case include members of President Trump's protection detail, include members of President Trump's staff that work with him and for him and have for many, many years. And so the practical implication of that special condition doesn't work in our view, in this case. Everybody that he interacts with, many of the people that he interacts with on a daily basis, including the men and women assigned to protect him, are potential witnesses in this case. So for him not to be allowed to have contact with them, in our view, isn't appropriate and doesn't work. We have certainly communicated with our client about what he can and cannot do and say as it relates to witnesses and potential witnesses, and I assure the court he will not violate our direction or your direction to the extent it comes from the court. But the special, you were correct about the co-defendant, Your Honor, that he works very closely with the president, but that is similarly true for many of the witnesses that we understand to be involved in this case. So the same. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 16. Challenges that exist with respect to the co-defendant exist for many of the witnesses as well. So I would respectfully request that Your Honor reconsider that special condition. We are happy to speak with the government about any concerns that they may have about President Trump, communications with witnesses, and bring any issues to the court's attention. But I believe the reason why we decided that special condition didn't fit with this case, Your Honor, is because of the facts of this case are everything in President Trump's life. So it's what happened at Mar-a-Lago, it's what happened at Bedminster, among other things. And the folks that are part of the government's case are the folks that work with President Trump and have worked for President Trump every day, especially as it relates to his staff and the United States Secret Service. The court. I think what you are saying to me is that many of the witnesses would also be in the same status as the co-defendant. You have the practical problem of being on staff and having close contact every day. Mr. Harbach. Your Honor, may. The court. Just a minute. I can't tell if you were going to say something because you were chatting. Did you have anything else you would like to say? Mr. Blanche. I do. A helpful, important fact. One of the key witnesses that we know is still the president's. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 17. Lawyer. So a special condition that President Trump cannot communicate with his lawyer obviously doesn't work. Respectfully, Your Honor. The court. Not phrased that way, but let me hear from the government. Mr. Harbach. Thank you, Your Honor. T'd like to offer maybe a suggestion about how to proceed. As Your Honor pointed out, your order requires the government to produce a list of witnesses to be subject to this condition. I should also say that the government is cognizant of the issues that Your Honor has raised and that Mr. Blanche has already identified about the practical difficulties of enforcing a no-contact order with certain personnel. So our suggestion would be that the government come up with a list, which, full disclosure, would not be an exhaustive list of all witnesses that might potentially be called at trial, but will be a list of witnesses reflecting our effort to narrow the scope of witnesses as to whom such an order might actually be necessary, and including an effort on our part to reasonably accommodate the types of concerns that Mr. Blanche has just expressed. And so our suggestion would be that you let us prepare a list, let us discuss it with counsel for the former president and, hopefully, we can agree on a list as to which this. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 18. Condition makes sense. I'll also point out that the same specialized condition that Your Honor articulated for the President's contact with Mr. NAUTA might also apply as to some of those other witnesses with whom he is required to work closely on a daily basis. In other words, the restriction could be limited to contact about the case. Suffice it to say that in our view, giving the parties a chance to iron out those details might be an efficient way to go. The court. What about if we come up with this plan? First of all, as the party generating the list of witnesses, you have a great deal of discretion, and you can choose to put a witness on the no-contact list or not. And second of all, what I will permit you to do is delineate witnesses into two categories. One will be the more traditional category of no contact whatsoever, and then the other would be no contact or no communications about the case. So if we're talking about people who are members of the protective detail, people who work at his golf course, people who are on staff, seems to me those folks could still be on the no communication about the case list. Make sense? Mr. Harbach. Yes, sir, it does. The court. Make sense for the defense? Mr. Blanche. I still do not believe the special. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 19. Condition is necessary in this case. Even as Your Honor just described, having two lists that the government gets to come up with about completely no contact or limited contact, but not to discuss the case, it still is potentially unworkable. Certainly, we can try to work it out with the government, Your Honor, but I don't know the names of, for example, if the government selects and says no contact with somebody who has worked for President Trump for years and continues to rely on President Trump for their livelihood, that certainly doesn't seem fair or appropriate. So I don't believe it's appropriate for the government to be allowed to come up with this list and that becomes the list. I believe the more appropriate path would be for us to have a discussion with the government and see if we can reach an agreement about an appropriate way to address Your Honor's concern about contact, but really contact about the case as it relates to most witnesses that the president interacts with that also happen to be witnesses. The court. Well, to follow up on the example that you just gave, that they were talking about somebody who worked for former President Trump for many years and may still work for the former president, what would be the difficulty in having a no discussion with that long-term employee about the facts of the case? That shouldn't be a problem, right? Mr. Blanche. That is not a problem, Your Honor. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 20. The court. Okay. That's what I am saying. You'd have a no-contact list, and then you have a list of no communications about the case, but otherwise you'd have full contact with those folks. Am I making sense? Mr. Blanche. Your Honor, I understand the court's concern, and what Your Honor just said makes sense. But we still object to that condition, Your Honor. First of all, I don't believe it's necessary or appropriate in this case. There is not the individuals who we understand to be witnesses that the president interacts with and speaks with every day all have lawyers and all have competent lawyers. And so to the extent that the remedy that the court seeks to address, which is improper communications between someone who is charged with a crime and potential witnesses, in this case it's not a remedy the court needs to address. Because the individuals that potentially could have contacts that the court is concerned about have counsel and have a way to deal with that, which will then quickly go to the government, I am sure, and be able to be brought to the court's attention. So I just continue to believe that this special condition doesn't apply to the facts of this case and shouldn't be imposed as a condition on President Trump. The court. You made a very broad statement. You said that all these witnesses have their own lawyers. Is that true? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 21. Every single fact witness has their own lawyer? Mr. Blanche. I don't know all the witnesses, Your Honor. What I believe what I said, and if I didn't, I misspoke, is our understanding of the witnesses that interact and communicate with President Trump, which it's not just his employees, it's others as well that interact with him occasionally or that work with him on the campaign. So it's a broad group of individuals. Those individuals that we are aware of all have their own lawyers, and so that remedy is addressed. There may be an unknown witness that I don't know about that doesn't have their own lawyer, I'm not sure. But the remedy that the court is trying to fix and address in this case is already fixed and addressed by the fact that the witnesses that will have contact with President Trump have their own counsel. And so imposing a condition, even a broad one that sets limits on what can be said and not said for particular witnesses and having separate lists for other witnesses that's no contact, as a special condition of release, isn't appropriate in this case. I think there's other ways to address any issues that come up with improper contact by anybody in this case. And the fact that everybody has lawyers, everybody has counsel, for the most part. And again, if there is a witness who doesn't, I'm not aware of that witness. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 22. And the special counsel there's 13 lawyers here. The special counsel is able to bring any issue to the court's attention about improper contact. And so as a condition of release, a special condition of release, it's just not necessary in this case. The court. So I have been listening to you for a while. Let me hear from the government again, please. Mr. Harbach. Your Honor, we offered advice a moment ago, understanding the court's position that such a condition is necessary. And all I can do is reiterate our view that there is a way to make the court's decision about no contact with witnesses and the like perfectly workable. The elephant in the room, if you will, is that we don't have a list yet. Mr. Blanche has referred a couple of times to the fact that he doesn't know who everyone on the list is, and that's because we haven't generated one yet. We are mindful of what Your Honor said earlier about a way that we could go about doing it, and we're happy to do that. And I've already made the point that it would definitely not include every conceivable witness we might call at trial, but a subclass of those witnesses as to whom we think the order that the court has already decided to enter should apply. It seems easily workable. There shouldn't be a logistical problem with it. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 23. The court. So here's what I'd like to do. Instead, we'll just have one list. We're not going to segregate it into different categories. It will simply be one list that you, the prosecution, will generate. You can choose how many people to put on the list or not. But it won't actually be a no-contact list. It's too broad, especially given all the folks who are still working for former President Trump and he still sees on a regular basis. Instead, this list will be a no communication about the facts of the case with the folks on the list other than through counsel. That should not be a problem for you because you've already told me that there shouldn't be any issues. These folks have their own lawyers. This is not a concern. This won't be happening. So perhaps in your view, it's simply restating the obvious, because you don't intend for your client to be communicating with any witness about the facts of the case, right? Mr. Blanche. Yes, Your Honor, of course. The court. Okay. So that will be a special condition. No communication with fact witnesses, no communication about the case with fact witnesses who are on a list provided by the government. If you believe that the list is inappropriate. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 24. Excessive, unwielding, illogical or in any other way problematic, you can file a motion with me, and I will reconsider that requirement, and we can talk about it in greater specificity. But for right now, that will be a special condition of the bond. Mr. Blanche. One question I might have misheard. Is Your Honor's requirement the government provide us with a full witness list? Because that will take. I'm not sure what the Honor's ruling is about this. They get to pick which witnesses they want to be added to the bond that we're allowed to have contact with but not communicate with about the case with, but they don't have to give us a full list of witnesses, just a list they select. The court. These are witnesses who the government says your client, except through counsel, should not be communicating about the facts of the case. Now, if they don't put a witness on a list, let's say there is some witness, John Smith, they don't have that witness on the list. If former President Trump, except through counsel, happens to speak to John Smith about the facts of the case, no worries, he's not in violation of the terms of the bond because that person isn't on the list. All right? Mr. Blanche. Understood. The court. Okay. So that will be a special condition. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 25. We have here the bond for former President Trump, and let me just briefly go through it. It will be conditions 1 and 5 and the special condition that we just spent the past few minutes talking about. There is a space at the very last page of the bond for the signature of former President Trump, and then there is a place for a date and then for my signature as well. So my courtroom deputy, Trina, has that bond. If you could come up and retrieve it, review it with your client and then have him sign it and bring it back to the bench, I'd appreciate that. Pause in proceedings. Ms. Silva. Your Honor, if I may? The court. Yes. Ms. Silva. Your Honor, since according to pretrial services, it is not a special condition of, since reporting to pretrial services is not part of the special conditions of release, we will not need a copy of the list provided to the government. The court. Good point. Correct. Thank you. Ms. Silva. Thank you, Your Honor. Pause in proceedings. The court. Take your time, folks. The courtroom deputy. 6 and 7. Pause in proceedings. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 26. The court. I think the expression is the third time's a charm. The courtroom deputy. Thank you. The court. Anything further from either side this afternoon concerning former President Trump? Mr. Harbach. Nothing further from the government, Your Honor. Mr. Blanche. No, Your Honor. Thank you. The court. All right. Thank you. Let's turn now to co-defendant, NAUTA. I assume we have the same 3 government lawyers for the prosecution. Who is here for the defense for Mr. NAUTA? Mr. Woodward. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Stanley Woodward. I'm here with Mr. NAUTA, though I understand I may not enter an appearance with the court until I have local counsel to sponsor me. We appreciate the court's indulgence in allowing me to join Mr. NAUTA at counsel's table for these proceedings. We'd request a brief extension of time for the arraignment only, for purposes of ascertainment of counsel. Mr. NAUTA is prepared to proceed with his initial presentment or his initial appearance with the court today. Thank you, sir. The court. What's the government's position on that? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 27. Request? Mr. Harbach. We don't oppose it as long as it's reasonably prompt, Your Honor. The court, sure. So the general rule is that only members of the Southern District of Florida Bar can appear in court. I understand you are in the process of making those arrangements, but those have not been finalized. I'm going to exercise my discretion and permit you to represent Mr. NAUTA this afternoon. Concerning the first appearance portion, but we can't go through with the arraignment because we need permanent appearance of counsel who is either a member of the Southern District of Florida Bar or who has been sponsored by someone who has filed a motion for pro hac vice, like Mr. Kais. So we can go forward with the first appearance. Is the government's position concerning the bond precisely the same for Mr. NAUTA as for former President Trump? Mr. Harbach. Yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. And the answers to all of the questions that I asked you concerning former President Trump would be the same answers for Mr. NAUTA? Mr. Harbach. Yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. By the way, before I forget, we're going to get to the bond in just a minute, but the arraignment will be 2 weeks. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 28. From now, June 27, at 9:45 a.m. That will be before Chief Magistrate Judge Edwin Torres. But let me just mention a possibility to you because I know you are not from this district and you may not be familiar with the rules, and I'm simply putting it out there. Under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 10b, your client, Mr. NAUTA, need not appear physically in court for the arraignment if you follow the procedures of the rule. And basically it requires you to have your client sign a form that follows the protocol of the rule. If Mr. NAUTA does that, then he doesn't need to appear on June 27 at 9:45 p.m. However, you, as his lawyer, and the lawyer who is filing the pro hac vice motion, would have to appear. I'm not asking you to make a decision now. That's entirely up to you, and you can consult with your client and your soon-to-be co-counsel, but I'm just flagging that for you as a possibility, all right? Mr. Woodward. Thank you, Your Honor. The court. All right. So this will be the same bond for Mr. NAUTA, which will be a no financial condition, personal surety bond, in effect a personal recognizance bond. The same standards, conditions. And we're also going to include the one special condition as we spent several minutes talking about earlier. So if I just say that condition, you folks will know what I mean? Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 29. Mr. Woodward. Yes, Your Honor. The court. All right. Very well. I have for you a bond for Mr. NAUTA to sign and to be witnessed. If you could come up and get the bond form for Mr. NAUTA, I'd appreciate that. Pause in proceedings. Mr. Woodward. I'm sorry, Your Honor, as I read the form provided by your clerk, it appears to impose all 5 of the standard conditions. The court. Is that right? Well, let's double-check that. If there's a mistake, we'll quickly correct it. Mr. Woodward, may I approach, Your Honor? The court. Sure. Pause in proceedings. Mr. Woodward, may I approach, Your Honor? The court. Yes, sir, you may. Pause in proceedings. The court, thank you. Anything further from either side this afternoon concerning Mr. NAUTA? Mr. Woodward, not for the defense, Your Honor. Mr. Harbach, not from the government, Your Honor. Thank you. The court. Mr. Harbach. All right. As I indicated, yes, sir? I was just saying not from the. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 30. Government. The court. Thank you so much. So just remember June 27th at 9:45, either with Mr. NAUTA or without, but either way, June 27th at 9:45. Mr. Woodward. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, Your Honor. The court. The good news is it will not be me, it will be the Chief Magistrate Judge Ed Torres. My involvement in this case, sir, I think ends right about now. Thank you so much. We'll be adjourned. Take care. Court Security Officer, all rise. The proceedings adjourned at 3:44 p.m. Certificate. I hereby certify that the foregoing is an accurate transcription of the proceedings in the above entitled matter. Date. June 13, 2023. Signature. Stephanie A. McCarn, RPR. Official United States Court Reporter. 400 North Miami Avenue, 13th floor. Miami, Florida, 33128. 305-523-5518. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 31. Glossary Index 1. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 32. Glossary Index 2. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 33. Glossary Index 3. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 34. Glossary Index 4. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 35. Glossary Index 5. Trump's arraignment transcript. June 6, 2023. Page 36. Glossary Index 6.